Good morning, class, or afternoon, as the case may be, and today we're going to do a brief video on the 4 modes of writing. Now, I'm not going to go over much more than descriptions today. You should be familiar with this. When we talk about the 4 modes of writing, these are the 4 basic modes. As you go on in writing, you will find that there are permutations, or different variations on these 4 modes. Also, another thing to remember, when I give you an example of these modes in practice, rarely ever is there only one mode in a whole piece of work, alright? And you'll see what I mean later. So when I ask you what mode this is, I'm asking for what we call the primary mode, or what the most important thing the form of writing is doing. Now, as you'll probably guess, since this is a unit on descriptive writing, we're going to be focusing on the mode of description, but we're going to talk about all 4 modes before we go on today. There's the descriptive mode, the narrative mode, the persuasive mode, and the expository mode. Now, you will notice in these 4 modes, we can roughly divide them into formal modes and informal modes. All right. Now, again, this is a little bit deceptive because formal modes will have informal modes in them and vice versa. So whenever you're using, for example, if you're doing expository, you're going to have description in it. If you're doing narrative, you're going to have description in it. If you're doing persuasive, you're going to have description in it. If you're doing expository, you might have a persuasive paragraph. All right. So the first 2 modes, the descriptive and narrative, are considered informal modes. We don't use them as much in scholarly writing, although we do use them. And the second 2, persuasive and expository, are considered formal modes. We use them a lot more in scholarly and, basically scholarly and informational writing. Now, we've talked about informational text, and informational text usually use modes 1 and 4. Descriptive and expository modes. Okay, so you're still like, well, what are the modes, Mr. Varn? Let's go into the basics. Descriptive is descriptive writing. Used to show, to describe, to help form a visual picture. When we say show, not tell, that's what we mean. Uses sensory details to appeal to the senses. Primarily imagery, but it can use any kind. Also, it's tend to be organized in spatial order, zooming in or zooming out. So what you see, you describe it as you see it, as it exists in space, right? So that's what we mean by spatial order. Narrative writing tells a story as it happens. Uses details to help render the experience of the event. So it uses a description. It's almost impossible for narrative mode not to have descriptive mode in it. And it's generally in chronological order, although sometimes it's not. And that could be confusing, but we'll get to that when we deal with some complicated short stories or novels. Persuasive writing persuades or convinces someone to believe something, to believe whatever you want them to believe. You state your opinion and then support it with facts, details, examples, and we're going to go into this way more when we get to it. And it is generally in logical order, all right? From most important fact to least important fact, or vice versa. It can be in either way, all right? And then there is expository mode. It informs, explains, and tells how to. There are no opinions. It uses facts and examples only. It is in logical order, most important to least important to note, or it's in detailed step-by-step instructions. Now, those are the 4 basic modes. There are actually other modes, and we will get to them throughout, but these are what we consider the writing building blocks. You might go, Mr. Varn, okay, I got this. So which one is, why are they formal and informal? Well, let's review real fast. Descriptive writing is in spatial order. So would that be formal? No, you just kind of call things as you see it. You use it a lot in your day-to-day life. Narrative writing, you use this all the time. When you're telling a story, when you're giving an anecdote, when you're saying something to your friends. Also informal. Persuasive, now there is informal persuasive writing. You're always trying to persuade people, right? You're always trying to get people to do what you want. But there's a whole lot where you're trying to appeal to someone, and you need the appeal of your character. And so speaking formally can help for that. So this is considered a possible formal mode. Expository writing. Think about all the times you have to explain something when you're in school. And you have to do it in a factual way, step by step, as little bias as possible. And the more formal you are, the less likely there is to be bias, right? So you write formally there to keep the bias out. And so that's why that's a formal mode. All right, so that's your basic introduction to modes.